Study found that cigarettes are more dangerous than previously thought. Smoking is now blamed for at least 5 more diseases and up to 60,000 more deaths each year. The study is based on health data from nearly 1 million people who were followed for 10 years. It appears in the New England Journal of Medicine. And another new study suggests that anti-smoking medication, particularly Chantix, possibly helps smokers quit, particularly those who are not yet ready to kick the habit. Dr. Fiona Gupta joins us to discuss this study and other medical news. She's a neurologist and medical director for the Deep Brain Stimulation Program at the Movement Disorders Center at Hackensack University Medical Center. Hello, Dr.
Hi.
Gupta. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
So let's start with, we're going to start with seasonal affective disorder. And there's quite a number of people that are affected by this, and it seems apropos because we're just in the doldrums of winter. I think most people understand what it is, but can you sort of talk about the science, the scientific connection between the weather and our mood?
Oh, sure. So seasonal affective disorder is a form of actual depression that occurs when seasons start to change, particularly in winters like this, where there's cold, darker days. And so it's very much linked to an actual depression where people can feel hopeless and worthless and have lack of energy throughout the actual season.
So short of, being a snowbird and flying down to Florida, what can someone do to lessen or even prevent the effects of seasonal affective disorder? One
of the most effective treatments is actually the use of a light box or a sun lamp, which are readily available. And I recommend to my patients to do it about 30 to 60 minutes a day. It makes a big difference. If further treatment is needed, then psychotherapy or psychological counseling, and even sometimes medication, as there is a link between certain chemicals in the brain and the development of seasonal affective disorder.
Is there a way to tell the difference between just sort of having a little blue period or being down and actually having this disorder?
Yeah, I mean, you can measure it by the severity of the symptoms, how long the symptoms are going on for, and really how much it's impacting someone's quality of life. And if all of those are in fact present, it is important to treat.
All right. So let's move on to a couple of other topics. We're going to talk about, we talked about, and I can't even believe this, that this huge study that we reported before introducing you that finds out that smoking is even more dangerous for us than we ever thought before, which is pretty bad because we knew it was pretty bad. But thankfully, there is at least some help with these anti-smoking medicines, particularly Chantix. Mm-hmm. First of all, how does this work?
Yeah, so smoking, I mean, is one of the biggest epidemics and problems, in the country, if not the world, and probably the most common cause of preventable death in the U.S. So this was a great study because it's very hard to determine how to quit smoking. What is the best way to do so? Certain guidelines say, just stop cold turkey, set a date and stop, but this is very difficult for some people who are not ready to do this. So Chantix was studied in over 1,500 patients, and Chantix essentially is a drug that binds to receptors in the brain that makes smoking less desirable.
Mm-hmm. Or less pleasurable.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the study showed that, those who took the Chantix compared to those who took placebo were much more likely to quit smoking up to a year out. So this was very important, and I think it leads the way, especially for those patients who can't quit cold turkey.
Yeah, it does seem encouraging. And does it cut down the amount of time that it takes to actually kick the habit?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it will also lead to better results with long-term smoking cessation, especially with people not going back to smoking.
Is there a rebound effect at all? If someone takes the Chantix, they have the decreased pleasure, so they're able to sort of go longer without the cigarettes and they break the habit. But if they stop taking the Chantix, will all those urges just come flooding back?
Well, I think that remains to be seen in this study to look at patients now out over 1 year to actually see. But hopefully they'll be able to stop for good.
Yeah, this seems like a dumb question, but do help me out with it. How is then Chantix different? How does it act differently than, say, a nicotine patch?
Well, it just really kind of binds to the receptors in the brain to really change the way the brain approaches smoking and the cravings. So I think it just works a little bit better.
Before we leave this topic, talk to us just a little bit about how powerful an addiction smoking is. 7 out of 10 people, I believe even in this study, said that they wanted to quit smoking. They all acknowledge the dangers of smoking, but yet have trouble doing it.
Oh, it's such a powerful addiction, and it's so difficult to quit, but it's readily doable. I mean, there's over 40 million smokers in the U.S., and actually 40% of those have tried to quit and were unable to do so. So it's a huge addiction, a huge problem, and I think studies like this will lead the way to hopefully better approaches to stopping smoking.
Absolutely, we do hope so, because it's bad news no matter how you slice it.
Right.
Okay, our last medical topic for the day. This is a big $50 word called epigenetics, or the epigenome, and the epigenome has, or many parts of it has been mapped, and that's important in many ways, so we want to talk about that. First of all, in words that we can understand, explain what an epigenome is.
Right, so an epigenome is basically the little light switches that turn on or off an individual's genes or their genome, which essentially can help predict if someone is prone to developing a disease or may not develop a disease. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the discovery of the genome, which was the hugest breakthrough, scientifically. So this is really a significant pivotal breakthrough.
Give us a practical application of how knowing the map of the epigenome will be helpful in identifying disease and maybe even treating disease.
Oh, sure. So if you take cancer, for example, knowing the epigenome, so which factors might activate a certain gene to turn on an individual to develop cancer, we can then study that a little further and then even develop specialized treatments based on this epigenome. So this is really just the beginning. It's a huge discovery, but there's so much more to be discovered.
And how many factors, what are the influences upon the epigenome?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's another thing that's really going to be heavily studied. What are the causative factors that lead to the development of an epigenome and how it works? So these are things like toxins and stress and smoking even, and even parental nurturing has been shown to maybe affect how someone's epigenome kind of takes place to then affect the overall genome.
And is this something that, in terms of mapping out the epigenome, is this done on an individual basis, or is it a population sort of wide understanding, if you will? You understand what I'm asking you? Yeah.
So this is a huge actual government-funded research project, the Roadmap Epigenomics project, which is really looking at individuals and basically putting these in a big bank where then we have a lot of research to take out from here.
So then we can learn and apply what we find from this bank, if you will, to many situations.
Exactly.
All right, it's very exciting. Epigenetics, you heard it here. Dr. Fiona Gupta, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you're watching Arise America.